This will be the Doan Brook Gorge, and it's a geographic feature, hydrological, and I'll be trying to make the most of it as an important Earth palimpsest. That is one place on the Earth, one point at which we can observe change over 370 million years. So many different processes, natural and human, that contribute to the gorge being what it is today. We're on this brown area now. Fairhill Partners is marked in white, and that is the Berea sandstone. That's what we're sitting upon, and that's a unit, a sandstone unit, one of our three sandstones that are prominent in the landscape. We're on a terrace that the glaciers have bulldozed all of the shale and other things that sat on top of this Berea sandstone. The glaciers could easily move it, but they couldn't move the sandstone itself. So we're on this terrace that is the southern part of Cleveland Heights. And then if you just go down to MLK on Fairhill, you're on that lurid green-yellow. And that sits on, that's the top of the Euclid bluestone. We're going to see both of these rock units today in the gorge. And then the blue up in the upper left is the floodplain, the base of the gorge under the Euclid bluestone out to University Circle. Okay, so it's easy to show this, and we're going to see the rock units that make these two terraces step up that the glacier made in the Portage Escarpment, the edge of the Appalachian Highland, beginning about 2 million years ago. And you have the step up from University Circle on top of the bluestone. And in my mind, the most famous mark that sits on the bluestone terrace is Nighttown on top of Cedar Hill, okay? And then you keep going, of course, eastward on Cedar. You can either go up Fairmount or continue on Cedar, but whatever you do, you go up a hill again, right? That, you're coming onto the Brown at that point. Same thing, and all over the east side of Cleveland, it's the same thing. So, you know, the Richmond Heights, northern part of South Euclid, northern part of Cleveland Heights, kind of flat, not as interesting as in here. That's on top of the bluestone. That's a terrace, two terraces here. And the gorge has cut through these two terraces, and that is the greatest interest we see today. But each of these has two phases, natural and anthropogenic. And just to mention, the first phase is the oldest, and that's the bedrock I mentioned. Sea bottom, sedimentation, uplift, sometime in the period of about 370 to maybe 50 million years ago. It's a long period. We don't have much to date it with here. Okay? And then the second phase in the natural is the Ice Age, the Pleistocene, and from that, all we have visible here is the advance of the last glacier about 23,000 years ago, and especially its retreat about 14,000 years ago, meltwater, gushing, rain, formation of the gorge in a brief period of time, and then the growth of the forest. The second part is the anthropogenic change, human-induced change, and that becomes a little more difficult. And there we'll see, I'll try to point out two phases of this. And one is industrialization of Cleveland, where, you know, the Heights wasn't a good farming area to begin with, and it became residential. But the gorge itself had certain resources, timber, so the trees went very quickly. The forest we see has nothing to do with the old forest. Species, type, distribution of trees, nothing looks like it did 200 years ago. Quarries, there's a lot of rock down there, and it was taken out for a lot of purposes. And then damming, there have been a number of dams in the area where we go, and they have been for milling. Okay? And that has transformed the gorge greatly. And then finally, after all that, it was used as a big dump. And there have been millions of tons of rubble thrown in that gorge. And it looks natural, looks nice. It is nice, but there's nothing natural about it. Okay? And I'll try to point that out without disillusioning you on the beauty of the gorge. But it is, as Mayor Jackson would say, it is what it is, right? And so then that brings us to the last phase, and that is we'll just call it the restoration phase, without implying either good or bad. restoration phase in which now we look at this feature and say, you know, this is an asset. And it's a wildlife sanctuary, if you like deer. It is, it's a nice place to walk, and it is a stormwater management facility. Okay, and it's natural, so we can use it for that. So that's one new use. And then, you know, the green infrastructure that goes along with that. So that's what we'll call restoration. And once again, there are positives and negatives. We are finally approaching this, you might say, consciously, but whether it's rationally is yet to be determined, maybe in a century. We have a good small group here, so it's outdoors. We all have masks. I think if we maintain 6 feet, which will be easy, especially once we get down inside the gorge, we're going to be safe today.